Wow, this past week we got some sudden but seemingly positive changes in the form of actual challenges being set up and storylines being paid off. I almost don't really know what to complain about because it's starting to seem like if and when I do complain about something, creative seems to actually have it covered by the following week. Am I being too optimistic? Somewhere around that while we run music.
Step into the ring, let it kills the men. Sushi got the move, and you feel the suspense and grappling, slamming the crowd, getting louder. We suplex the statement, we're making them proud. Champions ride, but legends never fade. Underneath the spotlight, we ain't never played. Fire ignited, we dance in the war. Enemies tremble, can you hear the roar?
Oh no, ooh yeah, can we go play that again?
What is up, wrestling fans? It's Sushi back with another episode of Oh No, Ooh Yeah. And yeah, seriously, what the hell is up with WWE? I honestly don't like complaining for the sake of it because I love pro wrestling and sports entertainment as actual entertainment. But I swear, we'd all gotten so used to WWE leaning into weird corporate-driven decisions over listening to the fans, which is exactly why it seems so strange that there's been some serious notable changes that have happened on both main roster shows over the past week. Once again, we didn't have a PLE this week, so we'll just be recapping last Friday's SmackDown and Monday's Raw as usual. If you have any questions or feedback, feel free to hit me up on social media, or there should be a link in the description to shoot me a text. SmackDown, January 9th in Berlin, Germany. SmackDown has been consistently so much better lately than it was for what I'd say was months. So going into this episode, I already had a less negative outlook than I did for what I'd say was most of the year. There were definitely moments during this episode when I forgot that I was watching SmackDown. And by that, I'm referring to the general consensus that the show is inferior to Raw. And also some, not me, people argue NXT. Let's start off with the cons. Oh no for the episode. First item, I really hope that they aren't already having Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair go back to solo competition. This week we had a women's U.S. championship match with Julia defending the title against Alexa Bliss. I mean, has there even been the slightest peep about Bliss wanting to do this? Having her also take a moment during the match to walk up to the belt in motion that she wants it felt pretty forced, but at least this isn't out of the ordinary for WWE when they know their storylines haven't had time to progress naturally. The match itself at least wasn't bad. Definitely one of Julia's better matches as of late, so I'm really hoping that this match was really set up to kind of reorient Julia's storyline as US champ this time around, over it being an actual committed return by Bliss to singles competition and leaving her tag team with Charlotte. I'm at least assuming the latter won't happen, since we did have Nia Jax and Lash Legend coming in ring at the end to give Bliss a post-loss beatdown, which seems more like a setup for a rivalry between her tag team and Charlotte's. Why it's 6 versus MFT feud is still stupid. That's the next item. Even if we are getting matches now, they seem arguably too little too late. I just also think that this rivalry continuing through the theft of the lantern is kind of weak. No offense to Bray Wyatt. I mean, I love the guy when he was still around, but yeah, I don't really know if doing this is really honoring his memory that well, because now it's just kind of a gimmick. So anyway, moving on to the next item. The last item actually of Oh No this week for SmackDown. What is up with DIY versus Fraxium? DIY has essentially been reduced to pranksters while they used to be arguably one of the top tag teams in WWE. Gargano previously stole one of Axiom's masks, and this week he uses it to pose as Axiom to help set up Nathan Frazier for a sneak attack. Why? Are there fans that really enjoy feuds like this? Because I'd argue nobody cares and WWE knows this, which is why they feel the need to have a backstage segment for no reason, but to apparently remind us that these tag teams are in a feud with each other. I mean, no one on either tag team has a match tonight. I guess the upside to this is that DIY left the U.S. Championship alone this week. They didn't even interrupt the match or show up to the ring afterwards. So I guess that's a positive. Moving on to Ooh Yeah, pros for the episode. First item, Randy Orton versus Trick Williams is a potential setup to a great rivalry. Even though Sammy was the one to bring up the Trick needing to be humbled angle last week, I definitely think that Randy would be a better fit as a rival to do this, since I think Trick actually respects him and I'll take it more to heart. Also, I guess I should learn to be more patient with how WWE seems to be running in the new year, because I know in last week's episode in the podcast, in my rant about luchadores not being utilized properly or at all, in my Raw coverage, I was wondering where Rey Fenix was. Well, this week he's here and has a match against Trick Williams. So yeah, now that I think of it, I vaguely remember Trick running into Ray backstage last week. So while it's been a while since we've seen Phoenix in a match, I guess it was set up last week, so sorry about that. As far as how the match was, for those who haven't seen Trick Williams before, I think it was a great introduction to his in-ring presence. I also think the match served as a great reintroduction to Rey Fenix in ring. Beyond that, I think Rey Fenix is probably the right level of talent for Trick to get a win against this early in his career in the main roster. And I also think the decision to have him win by cheating, holding on to Phoenix trunks during the win, was great. Phoenix isn't too close to the main event to seem unbelievable for Trick to win against, but what made it great was that cheating both gives us a look into Trick's character and personality, while also not making Phoenix look like an actual loser. I guess my only point of concern here is that it seems like the same guys who plan to go after the world championship, namely Randy and Sammy, are also the ones they are kind of setting up to have a feud with Trick. So how is WWE going to keep the situation from getting too messy with feuds potentially feeling really forced and not fleshed out again? I just hope that they kind of figure this out and figure out who they want to actually have a feud with Trick. Moving on to the next item, Jordynne Grace's now official call-up to SmackDown makes me hopeful for the fight over the Women's Championship. She had a great match on SmackDown against Alba Fire on this episode. It was a great way to introduce her to the SmackDown audience while also potentially setting her up for a run at the Women's Championship. It seems that way from the stare down between her and Jade Cargill that she had going up the ramp after winning. Jordynne clearly isn't backing down and even seems to scoff at the threat. A part of me also wants to believe that this specific matchup was intended to maybe silently elevate Chelsea Green up to the Women's Championship conversation. I mean, if they have Jordynne going up against Alba first instead of Chelsea, then I guess we could reason it's because Chelsea is tougher competition for Jordynne than Alba is. So, you know, if Jordynne's going to be going after Jade, then I guess that also puts Chelsea in the same picture. So moving on, Carmella Hayes continuing the U.S. Championship Open Challenge is appreciated and maybe even necessary as SmackDown continues to work on making improvements to its programming. This week we have Mella in a match against Shinsuke Nakamura. So even this shows that the Open Challenge can serve as an opportunity for great talent that may not currently be in an ongoing storyline to appear on TV. Given that one of the ongoing complaints with the show has been that talent that's on the back burner that doesn't have a storyline, they usually just end up completely absent from TV appearances, at least ones that aren't just blatant marketing gimmicks or ads. It also goes without saying that the Open Challenge is also helping elevate Mella's profile on the main roster, given his kind of bump start and less than stellar storylines as of late. Been pretty impressed since he challenged Dragunov when he was the U.S. champion, but I'd argue I'm even more impressed with him as a fighting champion through continuing the Open Challenge, which still proves to be one of the best aspects of SmackDown week to week. Next and last item, holy shit, Drew McIntyre wins the WWE Undisputed Championship. As if it wasn't insane enough that we were getting a 3 stages of hell match for the title, we get a payoff like this. I am seriously not mad at all. I'm more just surprised that I've underestimated WWE creative's plans for the new year. I mean, I honestly thought that WWE was just setting Drew up to lose so they could quickly pivot and move on to having Cody have a hijinks-free battle for the championship with him defending against like Randy Orton, Jacob Fatu, and Sami Zayn potentially. But this changes everything. The intensity of the match, the way both of these guys sold in each of the stages of the match almost made up for and gave legitimacy to this feud for once. We kind of needed this kind of aura surrounding the feud all along. Unlike the Wyatt 6 versus MFT, I feel like this time it's not too late for Cody and Drew. While I do think it's absurd that every dramatic return seemingly needs to involve talent appearing in a ski mask and hoodie for the reveals, I do think that having Jacob Fatu interfere in the exact way that he did really maximizes the potential opportunities for where the story goes from here. I mean, we got Cody being pissed at Jacob interfering in this match, but maybe not using his best judgment by deciding to attack Jacob instead of capitalizing on him attacking Drew for presumably attacking him backstage and putting him out of commission months ago. Sure, but that doesn't leave any potential for a Cody heel turn, rumor to continue, and all that stuff, right? While I don't think Cody's going to turn heel, I do think that part of his story is supposedly poor impulse control throughout this feud. While we've seen actions to both support and refute this, adding Jacob to the mix will definitely add some intensity to the overall undisputed WWE Championship competition. We also still haven't gotten a reveal as to who actually attacked Jacob. And while WWE could definitely just never give us that information, the fact that they seem to be listening to fans more lately has me thinking that, we will see that Drew, in fact, wasn't Jacob's attacker, and we'll find out who it is. Wrapping up for SmackDown, I just want to say that I do really think that the show's been making some impressive changes. Even if it still doesn't seem to be at the same level as Raw, the NXT call-ups, title changes, and most of the new and evolving feuds between talent, new and old, have been really promising. So more than anything, I think it's safe to say that we have pretty solid reasons to continue the 3-hour format. Funny part is, I kind of remember I was a bit irritated about some of the things that happened on Raw last week, and I honestly don't think it was as exciting as I expected it to be. So with that said, let's move on to this week's Raw. You go to Dusseldorf, Germany for Raw on January 12th. What do I know about Dusseldorf besides assuming that it's the place where the Dusseldorf mustard that they have at Weiss Castle is from? Well, after tonight, I know they also have a pretty huge domed arena. Cool. Anyway, this week I was most looking forward to seeing what happens with the Braun Breaker versus CM Punk feud. After such an impressive victory by Punk last week, fending off both Breaker and at times the rest of the division, and I'm pretty sure we're going to continue the Gunther versus AJ Styles feud. But probably still more to look forward to, especially with everything that's been happening in the women's division lately, both in regard to tag team and solo title competitions. Let's see if this week's episode of Raw cut the mustard. Oh no? First item, WWE is obviously serious about promoting it, but I don't know if I'm interested in Unreal this time around. While I could suspend disbelief enough to enjoy Unreal and allow myself to feel like some of it wasn't either redundant or purely set up for the show during the first season, I don't think I feel like I will be able to for the second season. The biggest reason seems to be that there are too many commercials or reports that there's talent in the WWE now that doesn't like Unreal. It's not that I don't believe that there are some talent that dislike it, or even that the ones who are willing to express this publicly don't actually feel that way. But I do think that WWE is choosing to highlight these mentions in order to further promote the show. I get they're a corporation, and I can admit that I like money too, but for some reason, I just feel a sense of sleaziness from that show. By that, I mean, like, the company seems to be leaning into, like, the bad press angle to sell it, to the point where I think it's outweighing like the documentary aspect now. So yeah, I don't know if I'm interested in it, but I'll probably watch it because, hey, it's on Netflix. Anyway, moving on to the next item. I still hate that Maxine Dupree lost the Intercontinental Championship to Becky Lynch. At the same time, I love Becky as a heel, so I guess I'm less upset about the overall situation than I am specifically over Maxine's loss. Plus, it's obvious that this is all helping to add fire to the feud between the two of them, so I hope this title change at least means more intense matches leading up to the inevitable rematch. Also, I do kind of find Angry Maxine, like the one that came out during her backstage interview this week, so I guess that's also an upside to all this. Next item. I like the vision, but I'm not really enjoying how top WWE luchadors are being used, basically as jobbers for them right now. I don't think this week's match of Bronson Reed and Austin Theory versus Penta and Dragon Lee was bad at all, but I definitely do wonder why two of the top luchadors in the company just seem to get involved in these forced feuds that WWE seems to feel the need to have between the PLE and title matches that any of the Vision members have. Like, it always seems to happen the same way. A match gets booked between one of the luchadors and a Vision member. The Vision engage in some hijinks, oftentimes both during and after the match, which obviously does cause the luchador to get pissed off at them. And then, that's how they set up the feud. I guess what makes this even more disappointing to me is that I've kind of gotten to like the Vision way more than I did initially, and maybe even like a bit more now that Seth isn't a part of it. But I just feel like it unfairly leverages the luchadors as a reason to be pissed at the Vision instead of having them actually compete because WWE wants the fans to cheer for them. And even if they do want to show Javon Evans offering support to Penta and Dragon after this match, I don't know if I really care to see him go up against the guys from the Vision. I think they're kind of working in a different area of wrestling. I just don't know if I feel like the lineup is that exciting to me. Next item. Why do I feel like WWE decided to have this new ad spot for WrestleMania to try to endear the fans and maybe IWC to Triple H? I think the celebrity match and storyline suggestions were funny in this commercial, but I just kind of felt like the spot was odd given that Triple H has otherwise been so serious these past few years when promoting the upcoming shows, and he's been getting some abuse on social media regarding some creative decisions when it comes to shows and PLEs. So yeah, I definitely feel like this is kind of like a spot to quell some of that stuff. Last item for Oh No. I'm still not on board with the AJ Styles versus Gunther feud. Even though they had a pretty good match, as far as the wrestling goes, I'm just not interested in how this storyline's being pitched right now, and I admit it kind of affects how much attention I pay to what's actually happening with the wrestling. I mean, I'm being distracted by Gunther continuing to make references to Cena, even though that dude's been retired for like a month now, and just behaving unlike anything we've ever seen from him. And I feel like it's getting to a cartoonish level of absurdity now. I suppose I'm okay with AJ's part in the feud, but like I've mentioned before, I'm just not interested in seeing Gunther being involved in retiring another wrestler in an outgoing storyline. Even if WWE is doing this in an attempt to like right any wrongs that they may have come around to during Cena's retirement storyline, I honestly am just not interested. Both of these guys are great in their own right. I just feel like it doesn't pay to repeat the same storyline and only change one character. And I especially don't think it pays to make Gunther act so childish in this whole feud. I know there's definitely content creators out there that are supportive of this feud. So I do just want to point out that I have enjoyed other talent playing absurd characters or acting out childishly. But for me, it just doesn't fit who I feel like Gunther is as a character and as a wrestler. Like, I think he's boastful. I think he's justified in being that way because he has the skill to back it up. But I just do not think a childish bully angle really works for him. Let's move on to Ooh Yeah for Raw. First item. Sorry, not sorry if I sound like a broken record, but I love the women's division, especially the tag team division. I honestly don't even mind the reminder promo that we got at the start of Raw this week because they're just all entertaining. Let's just go down the list. Rhea and Io as a tag team are a constant joy to watch. I just love them, and I think they're adorable and have great balance as a tag team. Even though I don't know what it'll mean if and when the Judgment Day finally splits, I also like Roxanne Perez and Liv Morgan as a team, especially given that it frees up Raquel Rodriguez to go after the Women's World Championship now. Shit, I think I've even been okay with Lyra Valkyria and Bayley as a team lately. I feel like they've been pretty quiet, and it seems like WWE's been easing off the crazy Bayley and angry Lyra angle a little bit and putting the focus more on like ramping up the overall intensity of the team in a way where I'm starting to kind of find them funny because they seem to be intense for almost everything at all times now. It's kind of goofy. And then the Kabuki Warriors. I don't need to say anything about them really, but like Bailey, Asuka sometimes piles on the intensity to the point of absurdity and amusement. And the addition of the frequent rants in Japanese really only enhances the product for me. But yeah, the triple threat number one contenders match, what a great way to showcase all the women's tag teams that showed up during Rio's promo. I think the impromptu matches like this that could easily be a PLE match have certainly contributed towards how consistently good the women's tag team division's been. So I'm glad to see WWE isn't afraid to continue having them fairly often. Next item, is Finn Balor getting another solo push? Please, yes. If so, I'm here for it. I honestly missed the Balor from back around 2017, so I'd love to see this happen for him again. Having Finn enter the ring during CM Punk's promo regarding his, successful World Heavyweight Championship title defense against Braun Breaker and whatnot in order to cut his own promo and it's like nicely hinting at his long career in other pro wrestling promotions in Europe and Japan. I'm assuming for people who have only known him as part of the Judgment Day, and making reference to his time as Prince Devitt really did it for me. While I would have enjoyed seeing a match between Finn and CM Punk that night, I do think that the setup to have Balor and Punk have the match in Belfast next week probably makes more sense given Balor will be back in his motherland and the match should presumably have a way bigger audience engagement. Next item, Javon Evans is one of the best all-around entertainers in WWE. If this match against Bravo Americano that he had proved anything, is probably that since it was literally just a highlight reel for this dude, and even the moments entering and leaving the ring were entertaining and at times hilarious. I personally think Evans could even be paired up with even bigger talent than the Americanos based on his popularity. But I do think that it makes sense to have them work in a storyline together because it'll let Evans sell his high-flying angle. Something that I feel like at times has seemed to be a hard sell to the average WWE fan, like the ones who watch the main event shows, or the main roster shows, sorry. And hopefully this will increase his fan base because even more before potentially moving him towards pursuing a title of some sort. Next item. Yay. I'm glad it looks like we're going to see Otis and Akira Tozawa from Alpha Academy in tag team action again soon. I've really been enjoying both of the guys popping up during Maxine's appearances, especially the more recent ones. But even as much as I enjoy them as a comedic duo, I do think that they deserve to actually wrestle again. I think the setup with them just outright asking Jey Uso for a chance at the tag titles is fun, even though I obviously don't think Otis and Tozawa are going to win that one. And then the last item, Braun Breaker is crazy and got suspended this week, but I'm here for it. Sure. While I did mention not enjoying the luchadors being used for the purpose of elevating the vision, man, do I love that this guy is getting a believable storyline as far as like the character that he plays is concerned. Did you see that spear he gave to Dragon Lee? Holy shit. That looked great on TV, but yo, seriously, look up the overhead view that they took of it when they had him running down the ramp. God damn, it was crazy. And even though I obviously don't think that he'll be suspended very long or that Paul Heyman isn't going to pull some kind of like legal or contractual trickery again to make sure that he stays in the running for the World Heavyweight Championship, I feel like having him attack Adam Pearce was just good for character development. Like, we know he's willing to cross the line, and he has already with even Seth, who is leading his faction. But this incident shows that he's willing to go further than that even. Closing out Raw, while I don't think this is something I haven't experienced before, I do think it's been a while since I've felt like there's more overall complaints that I had about an episode of Raw than I did about the episode of SmackDown that preceded it. But given that Raw seems to be WWE's favorite child when it comes to their TV programming, I have a feeling that anything fans are vocal about as far as criticism or weaknesses in the storylines or matches lately will definitely be course corrected in the upcoming weeks. However, we are looking towards the week leading up to Saturday night's main event, also followed by Royal Rumble the week after that. So unfortunately, as far as we've gotten used to seeing in these pre-event episodes, like the TV episodes that are right before the PLE, we might be short some excitement, not only on Raw, but also SmackDown in the coming weeks. But hey, at least we'll get events each week for 2 weeks in a row, closing out the month, right? That seems like a good lead into upcoming events. So for upcoming events, this week we have AEW Maximum Carnage starting on tonight, Wednesday, January 14th, during the Dynamite time slot. The remainder of the event is going to air this coming Saturday, January 17th, during the usual Collision time slot. And as I mentioned earlier, we also have an event per week from WWE, starting with Saturday night's main event next Saturday, January 24th. And then we got Royal Rumble that following Saturday, January 31st. Just a note, since Royal Rumble is in Riyadh, the start time is earlier for the U.S. So far, it looks like it'll be starting at about 2 p.m. Eastern time, or if you're in my time zone, that'll be 1 p.m. Central. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you've been enjoying the podcast so far, and just know I'm trying to consistently improve the production process of the podcast, and hopefully I'll try to get it out earlier in the day, or maybe even like the day before, so I can finally make room to maybe put out another weekly podcast to cover AEW TV shows. We'll see, but I feel like I'm probably still a few months out from even being able to do that time-wise. In the meantime, just make sure you follow and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcasting platform. We're on Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, and everything else, pretty much. And follow, and feel free to reach out to me on social media. All that's in the description. I'll see you on the flip side.